Welcome back, 5:47 on Daybreak, and this morning we are remembering when the rain couldn't stop the rock stars, Bell's Bazaar, and when a Buffalo company colored the world.
Yeah, the Bell's I worked at was pretty bizarre. Dave McKinley has our weekly walk back through time when those stories and more were news to you.
10 years ago this week, as the cannons were returned after several decades' absence from Front Park near the Peace Bridge, the last of the pedestrian bridges were being installed over the historically aligned canals at Canalside. And a Quinnipiac poll ranked Barack Obama as the worst president since World War II. Were that poll to be taken again today, there would, of course, be two more presidents to be considered than there were this week in 2014. 20 years ago this week, folks flocked to Niagara Square for 2 free days of concerts, with crowds expected to rival those which assembled for the Bills' first Super Bowl rally, the JFK visit, and the hanging of the Thayer brothers in 1825. But then, in perhaps some foreshadowing to a solar eclipse some 20 years in the future,
it never fails.
Despite the deluge that set the fans to scurry, Ani DeFranco was game, and so too was the featured act during a magical music weekend this week in 2004. 30 years ago this week.
Oh, no, it's kind of like Desert Storm. You just can't keep your eyes off of it.
With the Bronco now secured as evidence, preliminary hearings began in the case of O.J. Simpson, as entrepreneurs hawked whatever wares they could hastily produce in turn for a buck outside of the courthouse. Inside, we were getting familiar with the lawyers who would soon become household names and witnesses too. One of the first to testify was this guy, the subject of this week's News to You pop quiz, which is, do you remember who this is, who lived in O.J.'s guest house and suddenly found himself to be celeb du jour? Remember, despite this being well before anyone could have obtained a Facebook law degree,
this Georgia truck driver thinks the outcome is obvious.
Uninformed legal opinions could still be readily solicited at local watering holes.
They don't have enough evidence.
And it seemed everyone had one to share.
I think Shapiro's a really good attorney, and I don't think that the L.A. prosecutor is on a ball in the least.
This week in 1994. 40 years ago this week, you may recall shopping at a new type of supermarket at the first Bell's Bazaar, which opened inside a former Sibley store, Delaware and Sheridan. It was a more upscale grocery designed to compete with what Wegmans pioneered and featured singing employees. By then, Dresser Industries had sold off what remained of its plant in Depew that made parts for rail cars and where 1,600 Western New Yorkers once worked. But over on Tonawanda Street, Buffalo-born Pratt & Lambert was still going strong, producing paint being shipped around the world. Its color, though, would eventually fade as well and become part of the industrial lore of Buffalo from back in the days when it was all news to you.
And here's the answer to this week's News to You pop quiz. Of course, everyone knows his name. Cato Kalin was the man who was living in the guest house at O.J. Simpson's Brentwood mansion when O.J. was accused of killing his ex-wife Nicole and her friend Ron Goldman. Aspiring actor at the time, Kalin became somewhat famous as a result of his testimony in the Simpson case. His hair was pretty famous. Kalin has since continued his career in television and film. Yeah. I do remember shopping at Bell's, though, when I was a little kid. That was the big supermarket before Wegmans and Tops. We shopped at Bell's all the time.
Oh yeah, I don't remember Bell's Bazaar though. That was kind of an offshoot, and
but you knew it as Bell's.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
But the Bell's Bazaar was to compete with Wegmans after Wegmans came in, but I don't remember that one. But yeah, Bell's. We used to call it Hell's Bells up at Elmwood and North.
And that Goo Goo Dolls
arrived,
concert.
yeah,
oh my God.
Were you there? You were there for that, right?
No, I had to work overnight, so I wasn't able to go. But it was just ridiculously. Right. I mean, the manhole covers were blowing off off the sewers because so much rain was coming in. And but I got a chance to hang out with Johnny and Robbie on the steps of City Hall just a little while ago. And we're going to have a look back on that night and that day and what they remember most from that concert. And
the video is incredible.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and going back, I got to go look and see how much rain fell. We measured it at the airport, but I think it was over 2. I know what happened downtown was just, it was a monsoon.